She makes like video content of old games, like
I'm sorry,
Juggernaut.
baby.
Alright, if you're gonna have these conversations, can you please let me know?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They're being insanely loud.
I am. I'm sorry. I was too loud, guys.
I gotta feel in trouble.
I'm sorry. My wife wants to go to sleep. I'm sorry, guys.
Exciting. We're into summertime fun. All kinds of cool vibes going on. I wish that I had better news to bring you guys today, but I don't really have good news at all. Because, ladies and gentlemen, it is official. July 1st, 2026 will go down in history as physical gaming media Armageddon. What that means is that as of today, it is absolutely official. The games industry has decided to move on from physical game discs. This is something that, if you've been following the industry for a while like I am, you've seen the writing on the wall for a very long time. Ever since you would buy a game disc, put it in your console, and find out, oh, the game's not on this disc. Actually, it's just a digital placeholder. It immediately triggers whichever digital store you're using, whether that's PlayStation Network or the Xbox Live Store, and then it starts downloading the real game onto your console. So what was the disc for? The answer is nothing. It was just a placebo to make you think you physically own something that you actually don't. Because in reality, for those who don't know, when you buy a video game in the modern era, you don't own it. Unless you actually are buying the IP, intellectual property of the game, you don't own the game. You just own a license to play it. And that's exactly what has happened, is people have misunderstood what game ownership is for a very, very long time, thinking that because you own a physical copy, you actually own the game. That's why there's a whole resale market for games that has had a humongous industry crash in the last 10 years. Why do you think GameStop, who used to be the #1 gaming store in the world, had to completely reposition and now become a place that basically sells junk like pop culture figures and t-shirts, or does Pokemon card trade-ins? That's why, everything is changing. And what we're going to do today is to actually analyze what's going on, because it first started just a few days ago when we covered the announcement of the pre-orders of GTA 6, and Rockstar outright said, no physical copies. We will only ever be giving out digital codes. Even if you buy the physical box edition, there's still a code inside. Then the entire internet went crazy and said, oh, there has to be physical. There has to be physical. And they even started making stuff up. Like, they started taking obscure help request responses from Rockstar as, oh, look, they're going to make a physical copy. Rockstar then confirmed, we are not making physical copies. There will never be a disc of GTA 6. And so I think this has been the spark where the entire industry was just waiting for one big company, one big game, to someone to make the push towards all digital. And since Rockstar made that push, everyone is going to follow suit. It began today. Are you ready? I think we just jump right into this story. Let's do it. Let's cover the news right at the beginning and top of the show. Okay, ready for this? Well, I was ready. Here we go. PlayStation blog. Physical disc production ending in January 2028 for new games releasing on PlayStation consoles. In response to shifting trends in consumer preference, new games will be released on PlayStation Store and at retailers in digital formats only. As consumer preferences and the broader entertainment industry continue to shift away from physical disc to digital, physical game disc production for all new games releasing on PlayStation consoles will be discontinued starting in January 2028. Following this date, new games will be available on PlayStation Store and at retailers in digital formats only. This transition has no impact on games that already released or will be releasing prior to January 2028 in the disc format. This is a natural direction for Sony Interactive to adapt to consumer trends as the general preference for digital media significantly outpaces physical discs. The transition will enable us to align more closely with how most of our community prefers to access and play games today. Thank you to the faithful Kimono. That's very generous of you, and I will shout that out in a second. Hold on one second. Okay. We'll continue to prioritize our resources to drive innovation and how players can blah, 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 blah. Nothing. Okay. So here's the thing again. The writing has been on the wall for a long time that this was going to happen. We saw everyone starting to buy digital. The internet infrastructure in the world improved worldwide, so everyone could get these games digitally day one. DLC distribution, became solely digital, and we kind of had a feeling, right? But again, when you buy a disc, you put it in your console, and it literally doesn't install anything. It just says, go right to the store, and it downloads the game. You could have done that already. So the disc didn't matter. And what you have to understand is, especially now, what's going on in the world, inflation is rampant and crazy. And pricing of RAM, memory cards, etc., is going up. World strife causing things like gas prices to fluctuate. Well, what's going to happen is every industry is going to try to penny pinch. They're all going to try to tighten their belts a little bit. And producing a physical disc, a physical box, a printed, insert costs money. Money that companies like Sony think that they could do better appropriating somewhere else, that it doesn't really add to additional sales or value to actually have a physical copy anymore. So you might say, this isn't a big deal, right? Because already the industry was headed this way, so why does this matter? Okay? So I do have two actual reasons that I think that this matters significantly that we should absolutely bring up, okay? Reason number one is the entire preface of sharing a game or renting a game or reselling a game. I want you to think about this. A digital code cannot be resold once it's been redeemed. A digital code cannot be traded with your friends so they can borrow a game and see if it's any good. A digital code cannot be resold at any kind of a store. Therefore, digital codes become one-time purchases where only you have access to this game, and that's that. If this change had come and Sony announced, from now on, we're actually going to have a new digital marketplace where you can buy and sell digital versions of games and their licenses, I'd be like, okay, not a big deal. But they didn't do that. They're just going to take away physical medium completely and give you no alternative besides, here's your code, you're going to like it, tough. Now, if you don't know, an announcement like this already happened. It was just a very long time ago. At the launch of the Xbox One, Don Matrick, who then was the head of Xbox, outright stated, we're not going to have the physical medium anymore, right? No trading of games, no buying and selling to your friends or handing to your friends. We're just going to have it all be digitally linked to the console. And if you remember at that time, everyone was in an uproar. Oh my God, no way. And then Sony, it was actually Sony who did that E3 skit where the two guys who were the heads of Sony, one guy says, how do you trade your games or how do you lend your games to a friend like this? And it just shows him like handing the game over. There you go. Well, guess what? That's done because there's no more physical discs. So how on earth would you ever do it? Right? So it's funny because it was Sony who over a decade ago was the one giving the razz to Xbox because Xbox wanted to do this first. And Sony said, we won't do it. But now Sony is the one actually pushing this forward, not Xbox. So number one, I do think that's the number one problem is no more resale market whatsoever. No more sharing games with friends. No more rentals. It's all over. All that entire market is now done. Okay. However, there is another bigger issue. And if you want to really get to the meat of it, I actually think this is one of the major reasons why Sony is doing it. Are you ready? Shout out to Dustin Furman on X, who made an excellent post. And in this post, he cites, this totally sucks. They will eventually try to blame this decision on the handheld, but the reality is they want you spending more money on games with less consumer choice. Don't take my word for it. Look at the prices of physical versus digital on PSN for these older titles. You ready for this? Astrobot, which was the launch title for PlayStation 5. You can buy physical right now on Amazon for $39. If you try to get it digitally from Sony, $60. God of War Ragnarok, you can buy physically on Amazon right now for $32.75. They're still charging full price on PlayStation Network. Gran Turismo 7, $38.99 on Amazon, physical. Digital, $69.99. And lastly, The Last of Us, Part 1, which I believe this is the PS5 remake version of it, $34.38, physical, digital, full price. So, why do you really think Sony is going to get rid of physical disc production? They want to have a stranglehold on the market for their games. This isn't so much of a big deal if you're talking third-party games, because third-party games obviously can be played across multiple platforms. No one really has a control of the market. You could get a third-party game on Steam. You could get it on other digital stores for PC. Then you can get it on PSN. You can get it on Xbox Store, right? But for the exclusives, for the ones that these companies design exclusively for their platform, they will now have a complete control over the market. What I'm going to say right now, maybe a little controversial, but I am now foreseeing a monstrous explosion of third-party sellers selling digital redemption codes. For example, there are third-party sites out there you can go and you can buy a code for these games that you then redeem on PlayStation Network that's much cheaper, okay? I'm going to predict that we are going to see a mass increase of people now buying those codes because it used to be, I'll just get the physical copy, it's $30, but now there's no more physical copy. So go to the reseller and buy it there, and it's actually cheaper. So The next step, and this again, this is just a prediction. The next step might be Sony starts to crack down on digital codes, saying, oh, now there's no more digital code sales. We're not going to allow that. Instead, it's just going to be you have to buy through PlayStation Network Store. That's it, which is crazy to think because they're saying we are going to still sell the codes in stores. But what if you have this resellers market that's basically undercutting them? They might get angry and say, we're not going to do that anymore. This is a big industry shift, everybody. This is huge. And you have to understand this, sadly, is anti-consumer. This is taking control out of the hands of you and me and putting it solely in the hands of these corporations. They want to choke you for every dollar they can because costs are going up. So, yeah, as much as I've been 100% saying the writing's on the wall, this is eventually going to happen, and there's not much we can do about it, it's still sad, and it's still bad news for us as consumers and gamers. Okay? Now, that's not the only news going on in regards to this. Xbox announced a new initiative this morning, very weird, that Sony announces they're completely getting rid of game discs in 2028. And now, immediately, Xbox makes this announcement. You ready for this? Xbox is testing disc-to-digital features that will digitize your physical game collection. So what they're stating is they're going to have a digital collection available on Xbox consoles. You take your physical disc, you put it in the console, it scans it. Now you own the game digitally, so you don't need to have the disc ever again. You'll have it attached to your, I guess, your ID or whatever on Xbox. So you'll have a digital collection following you around, even if you bought the game physically. Sounds like a good idea, and it sounds like, hey, that could help the customer, except you understand where this is going. What they want to do is get all of your games digitally so that you don't need the physical media anymore, and it devalues the physical media. Therefore, it makes sense to phase it out. Do you see? So, yeah, I hate to say it. Even Xbox, it looks like, was going to do it, and it looks like Sony just beat them to the punch on their announcement. But that's exactly what this is. Why else would Xbox be offering to turn your physical discs digital? What purpose would that have, right? Because they want to get rid of physical media too. So there you go. Hey, and Wiggle Will just made a good point. He says, keep in mind, when everything ends up being digital now, no physical media, imagine what happens if Xbox or PlayStation decides, oh, you broke their terms of service somehow, and they freeze your account. Now you lose your entire game collection because you don't have anything physically. What if someone hacks your account and steals it? You literally, it's like mass theft. Someone just stole your entire game collection out from under you. You own nothing because all you ever had was a digital ID that can be stolen. Okay, one more piece of news today on the morning show, everybody. Let's get it all out of the way. We saw it. The writing was on the wall. It is physical media Armageddon. And when physical media goes away, it essentially means the control is taken out of the hands of the consumer and placed solely in the hands of the corporations. They now tell you how to get the games, they price the games, and they control the market. The physical media put that power in the hands of the gamers as we had this third-hand reselling marketplace, buying, selling, outside of the realm of the original transaction. A third-party market meant that we could now actually have collections, control things, actually have values go up and down and all of that. Now, it's all in their control. And at any moment, they could just say, oh, pull the plug. For example, are you aware that it was just announced, literally this week, that Sony lost the rights to a certain movie collection? And if you had bought those movies on the PlayStation Network outright for purchase to own forever, you lose the rights. You just lose the movie because you never had it physically, and they're just taking it away. I think one of the big movies like Terminator 2, that's a huge movie. I'm sure tons of people have bought it. Well, if you bought it on PlayStation, you now don't own it anymore. They robbed you. And apparently, there's nothing you can do because I guess somewhere in the terms it said at any time they can revoke the rights. So what's to say that at some point they just decide they revoke all your rights and now you have no games? The Block made a good point. Thankfully, there's still places like Limited Run, In, and Fangamer. I do feel like what'll happen for certain releases, you will see these third-party companies manufacture physical copies just for the sake of having that nostalgia, but that's not going to be for these big ones. You know, anything that Sony made, Xbox made, etc., they're not going to be making physical copies. Holy moly, guys. I mean, what a news story, right? That's insane. Like, to be frank, that's just crazy. We knew it was coming. It was Studio Canal stuff. Thank you, Myroon. He says it's Studio Canal movies. You paid money for the movies and shows. They removed all of it with no reimbursement, nothing. You just got robbed. That's what just happened on PlayStation this week. So now imagine these games have digital distribution through PlayStation Network. Xbox. Oh, one day, oh, we don't have it anymore. They pulled their games. Okay, well, you lose your game now. You can't play it ever again, right? But I did post it up on X the other day. If you're not aware, there's currently a lawsuit going through. People are suing the 3 big memory manufacturers because remember what I said 2 days ago on the morning show? That I didn't understand why pricing on memory was ballooning. And everyone's like, well, it's because demand is going up because of AI. But the way I explained it was you have to understand something. Just because there's more demand doesn't mean the cost to manufacture is higher. More demand means more people want it, but it doesn't mean it's more expensive to make. What I felt was happening is that we were getting scammed. That these companies that make the memory said, ooh, there's way more demand for it now, and AI companies want to buy up all our memory. Let's ramp up the prices so we can make more profits. Well, guess what? There's evidence that actually happened, and there's a lawsuit going through right now suing the top 3 memory manufacturers in the world that they are colluding to rip off the world and get rich quick. I don't think a lawsuit would be going through like that if there wasn't some evidence of this actually happening. Because I think that's exactly what it is. They're trying to take advantage of us, saying, well, the world's now reliant on our memory, and everyone wants it. Let's jack up the price, and we'll just basically make extra money for nothing. Well, they're getting sued. I don't know how long that lawsuit will take to go through, but let's hope that something comes of it, okay?